Welcome to Ignite Intimacy, a podcast exploring intimacy, romantic relationships, sexuality, and the all of everything that relates to these hot topics. We're going in. You ready? This is your host, Miss La. Let's do this. All right, Ignite Intimacy community. I'm really excited to dive into the whole cannabis realm again. As you know, we had Alicia Roberts on about a month ago, and we were talking about cannabis and sex and sexuality and intimacy. And I was just recently out at the New West Summit in Oakland, California, and I just happened to be there during a panel on sex and cannabis. Who would have thought? I'd call it good timing. And so I was watching this panel, and there was this woman on the panel who just really stood out to me. And I was like, I need to know who this woman is. And she was just dropping knowledge, dropping some serious knowledge about just, the body, the skin, sexual health, enhancing sexuality by the use of CBD and cannabis. And she's going to help us decode all of that, because I'm still even though I've been a consumer and I love cannabis. I've loved it for many, many years. I'm totally getting terms mixed up here. So Alicia Rose, it is so great to have you on the line. I'm hoping you can help decode some of this for us.
Thank you. I will absolutely do my best.
So great. Well, it's so good to hear you come into us from Northern California. I know that when I had seen you speak on the panel, there were some crazy raging fires up near your neck of the woods.
Yes, indeed.
And, we didn't, there was some news coverage about the fires, but it was pretty intense out there. I was down in the Bay Area for a couple of days around that time, and there was, just smoke coming down from the fires in the Bay Area, and just knowing friends and family who were literally fighting for their friends and their families and their own properties and livelihoods and lives. It's been very, very intense up there.
Yeah, it certainly was. It was an interesting time to be evacuated and to still want to show up and be a part of this event that was going on. We had a mandatory evac from our house. And, of course, I thought to myself, gosh, I can't pull myself together and show up and be on a panel and pretend like everything's okay when I'm in danger of, losing my home and our friends are fighting for their lives. And what I realized is that cannabis is such an incredible conduit for so many things, but one of the things that it is so good at doing is bringing people back into community in a more open-hearted way.
Yeah. And
so I thought to myself, what a better time to go and be in community with people that want to talk about cannabis and the things that I really care about. In some ways, it was perfect. So I, rustled up some clothing that would have been at least somewhat suitable to get on stage with, and down I traveled. So.
Yeah, well, it was awesome to see you there, and I'm just so grateful to hear that, your house and most of your farmers were saved from, the fires, and yeah, so that's a real blessing.
Yeah, it sure was. Absolutely.
So what intrigued me about you was just, you were dropping some serious knowledge about, cannabis and the effects on the body and the skin, and then also sexual health and pleasure. And so what I'd love for you to do is share a bit about your company. What does Herba Buena, what's your kind of sweet spot in the cannabis space? And then really want to learn more about your background, because you've got a really interesting background as well, which brought you into this current business.
Sure. So, in some ways, Herba Buena was the cannabis company that I desperately wanted to have in my life. And since at the time when I started this 3 years ago, nothing like Herba Buena existed. It was sort of fulfilling a need. The thought was, even if I can provide my friends with access to this incredible plant medicine in sort of its purest and highest form, making sure that it's clean and that it's, been grown with love and intention and all the things that sort of bring about, I think, the highest form of all plant life. And it's the human interaction with it, that it would, you know, just be kind of a fun side business, if nothing else. And, you know, here I am 3 years later, and it's been the most exhilarating and most challenging thing I think I've ever done in my life. But I can't stop, because cannabis it's a magical therapeutic spirit plant that has a profound, you know, ability to sort of help us reassess the dialogue of, you know, how we interact together as humans and how we nourish and heal ourselves and the planet. And from that perspective, you know, it doesn't sound very good to investors when I explain it that way. It's far too woo-woo and obtuse for them. But, you know, from the fundamental place of where I'm coming from and why, you know, cannabis has in some ways chosen me to be a voice, you know, that's really, I think, the place that we come from. And so from that stems all of the other things. So when you're looking at cannabis as an agent for change and healing, you know, you can kind of go down almost any route. And of course, sensuality and sexuality is certainly a big piece of that. So.
Well, so tell us a little bit about your background. Like before you started this company, go back as far as you know, think fits. What was your journey before you launched into Herba Buena?
Yeah. Well, I grew up on a horse farm and was really blessed to have that be a big part of my life, and decided that I wanted from a very young age that it was important to me to sort of figure out how we could improve, you know, life on this planet and leave things a little bit better when we leave them than when we receive them. And so, you know, early on, that was a kind of fundamental sort of, you know, understanding that I had of my place in the world. And so I went and got my degree in ecosystem science and international affairs, and then got swallowed up into a long journey of very many stops and places along the way. Washington, D.C. and the Hill was one of them, and Manhattan was another. And then I found myself in Northern California. And when in Northern California, you know, what are you going to do for a career that sort of married my newfound appreciation for sort of the sophistication and taste that, you know, Manhattan is so good at, with my agrarian roots, right? So the wine industry seemed like a really good fit to sort of marry those two things. And it was, you know, I had a really, really amazing career in the wine industry, and still do. I still actually do consult for a few wineries that have become almost more like family now.
Nice.
But it was this, you know, it's been this incredible journey of helping other people sort of leave their legacies and leave their mark on the world through their wine brands and their wineries and the stewardship of land and creating these beautiful products from that. So of course, when you hit a certain age in life and you sort of wake up and think, gosh, what am I doing? You know, how am I getting back to serve my purpose?
Yeah.
And is it really about helping other people leave their legacies? And, you know, I love wine, but wine is not a passion for me. And so when you sort of hit that age and sort of look back on what is important and how to live your passion, for me, it's about plant medicine and has been plant medicine and healing, you know, and thinking about different ways that we can utilize what nature has given us to sort of make life better, and getting back to that way of thinking, you know, where we're getting away from the industrialized and unhealthy way of thinking about nourishment and agriculture. And so cannabis seemed like a natural fit that sort of put all of what I had done in the past into a present situation. So it's been a magical journey that way.
That's cool. And so you have a line of different products with Herba Buena. It's not like you're not just focused on sex and sexuality products, but you've got a whole line of products. Talk to us a little bit about like the curation of what you decided to put out through your company.
Sure. Yeah. So that is correct. We do have a lot of different products that we offer. The concept behind the product line that I continue to develop is how best to utilize the whole plant intelligence and the full spectrum of healing benefits that cannabis provides and incorporate it into the daily life, right? So it's much less about, you know, getting super high or checking out, and much more about products that allow us to utilize cannabis for its highest purpose, which is bringing us more in touch with our own senses instead of cutting us off from them. And so that is, you know, certainly one of the beauties of cannabis is its ability to balance and heal through creating balance. And so the products that we develop are all about sort of developing a greater state of balance and homeostasis, and therefore a greater state of health. So, some of our initial products were a line of elixirs that not only use cannabis, but also other synergistic herbs to get the greatest benefit from cannabis and the most healing potential, oftentimes without the high. So one of the first products that we developed, I called Rock and Roll. And, it's only 3 milligrams of THC per sort of dose, if you will, per dropper full. And it's a sublingual tincture. So you're getting sort of the maximum benefits absorbed through your soft tissue and get sort of an immediate sort of result rather than having to wait if you were to, sort of do the same thing with edibles or something like that. So the elixirs are really wonderful and really powerful and meant to be taken throughout the day to sort of enhance, joy and well-being without sort of making you feel high or detached or stoned in any way.
Nice.
So yeah, elevated, if you will.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah. So we have, one for feeling up and creative and energetic and more joyful. That's called Rock and Roll. We have a product called Lullaby, which, as you might imagine, is to help for sleep. I am a tragic insomniac. And so that was definitely an important thing to sort of have in the lineup for me. The third product that we developed was Quiver, and that is the sensual lubricant. And I had, for many years used cannabis in all different ways to enhance that experience and felt that there was, a magical combination that we could create to really elevate that experience and could be used for so many things. So not just a great sensual and sexual lubricant, we can also use it for helping with menstrual cramps and helping to tone a woman's soft tissue sort of from the inside out, if you will, which is important as we age. Those are things that we need to be conscious of and take care of. And so it's this really wonderful product for a lot of different reasons. And then, of course, we have topicals for pain that we've developed, and then just our biodynamic flowers that we package and make into pre-rolls and all sorts of other fun things.
Nice. And those are actually, you're smoking those.
Yes, exactly.
Got
the
it.
Flower or the buds, as what you would recognize as ganja.
In all of its many forms.
Yes, indeed. And then we have just released also a set of tinctures, supplements, if you will, that incorporate the benefits of THC and CBD, again, in this full spectrum and whole plant intelligence way. So we use a full spectrum extract for everything that we make. I'm not necessarily a believer in extracting single cannabinoids through more harsher processes that strip out what I believe to be the other important compounds in the plant. So we really, everything we do focuses on whole plant intelligence and how that benefits the body.
Nice. Yeah. And so I'm curious about how you got to Quiver. And what were some of the ways that you through your life have used cannabis in order to, increase pleasure or intimacy in your relationships?
That's a great question. Well, in its, sort of purest form, you generally smoke joints, or something, or, have that experience with cannabis, in your more formative years with other people. And so, throughout college and all those things, I would be outside in this group of people and having these wonderful sort of deep conversations, sharing a joint with people. And so from that standpoint, cannabis helps to bring us closer to other humans and allows us to go deeper more quickly. And so, I think fundamentally that's a really beautiful thing in and of itself. It's also been known for obviously tens of thousands of years, as long as we've used cannabis, as an aphrodisiac, because it has this incredible power to help get us more in touch with our senses. Again, where alcohol, can free us because it sort of cuts us off or helps create a veil for a night, or as long as, we are intoxicated. Cannabis almost has the opposite effect in that it makes us more open and receptive, and more in touch. And so, I think that is why it can act as such a great aphrodisiac is, all of a sudden things smell better. They look more beautiful. Colors are brighter and sensations are heightened. So,
Well,
and then,
yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, and then, you incorporate that into, the power that is the divine feminine, and magical things can occur.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, and I'm just thinking about my journey as a parent. My daughter's 20 now, and I mean, in my friend circles, I was very open about smoking and enjoying marijuana. However, with everyone else, like, it felt like a threat, right? Because, and it seems totally absurd to me right now that cannabis was ever illegal anywhere, and that it still is very illegal in many states in America and all over the world. I mean, there are places where if you get caught with marijuana, I mean, you could go to jail for life. And,
sure.
Which is totally insane to me. Anyways, I kept it on the low as much as I could for many years because I was a mom and I was concerned that could become an issue.
Sure.
And so, are you a mom as well?
I am.
Yes.
Yeah. My daughter's 7. So we've had to go through all of those conversations.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So we'll get there. But I remember that when my daughter was younger, it was like when I would get high and she was like still awake and around, and because many times I would smoke just like at night after she would go to bed, right? But there were times when I had some very dear friends who also had a child the same age, and we would get high together and then just hang out and cook and hang with the kids and whatever. And I just noticed that whenever I smoked and I was around my daughter, I was actually like a better mom. Like, I was more
so
open.
Funny.
I could connect with her without all the like angst and anxiety and frustration of like all the balls that I was juggling. I could just relate to her in different ways. I had fun with her. Like, I could just have fun with her.
Yeah. And I mean, if I had $1 for every woman that has come to me and in hushed tones, said the exact same thing, we're afraid to say that sort of something we consider to be a drug can actually make us better at parenting or better at life.
Yeah.
Because it's not a drug. At the end of the day, it's a plant, and it was put here like all other plants to, create this beautiful ecosystemic web of life. And we have everything here that we need. We just, need to be open to utilizing them and being reverent with them and utilizing them for what we need and what we desire rather than for checking out. But I've had the exact same experience, and rock and roll actually was born out of that. I was consulting for 4 wineries at the time and was trying to start this cannabis company prior to the end of prohibition, which was still is considered, I think, the most terrifying thing I've ever done, and still makes my blood run cold sometimes with fear and uncertainty. But, I was finding myself so busy and so stressed out and, so sleep deprived from all of these different things I was trying to do all at once, as well as being a mom and a wife. And, my husband has his own business and trying to be supportive of all that. It was just too much. And I didn't feel present for my daughter at all. I felt like I was only giving her half of myself. And so I would come home and I would smoke a joint, and then I would sort of show up and be here and be present and be joyful and not worry about the 10,000 other things that were going on, but just be able to enjoy her and have a conversation with her. And then I, started thinking, gosh, maybe it's not okay that I'm coming home and getting high just to be present for my family. And so, because I didn't want that sort of feeling of being checked out all the time. And so I started searching for different types of cannabis and strains of more heritage and heirloom varieties that have much lower THC that allow you to still get the benefits and also still be very present. And then that kind of turned into what we developed with rock and roll, which was this, the benefits, as I said before, the benefits of cannabis, feeling more joyful and present and arriving in the moment without, feeling like you were dysfunctional in any way. And so, so it's a really magical experience, and one that I think all women should be talking more about. We need to stop hiding the fact that it makes us feel better and makes us better mommies and wives and friends and, all those things that we are.
Well, I know, it's interesting. I remember seeing this woman in Colorado being covered on the news or somewhere, and she had started this company where they were doing these cannabis and food curated events, and she's a mom as well. And like, there was just like this openness about her being a mom and her smoking marijuana and her like doing her thing. And I was like, wow, that is so awesome,
Right.
Cause I always felt so nervous about sharing that part of me. And it's quite liberating to be like, yeah, I love marijuana in all of its many forms, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, yeah, so it's great. And it's funny because like these days I'm smoking a lot less than I ever have, but I'm still like just such a proponent of it. And
yeah,
so what's cool is like a broader community of people are just, from myself included, really understanding that like, wow, you can apply cannabis in so many different ways, right? So we've always known what a great resource hemp is and how many different applications you can utilize hemp for, or at least a few practical applications, right? Clothing, rope, building materials. But as far as cannabis itself, like you generally think, okay, you smoke it or you eat it.
Right. And
so there are now like just so many different ways that we can start to apply it and utilize it. And it's like psychoactive or not non-psychoactive. So
exactly.
Like, so you can like get the benefits without getting high if you don't like the feeling of getting high. But I'm curious if you could talk to us just more in depth, especially with regards to Quiver and like the topical application. And because I've read some things about, like the topical application, especially in a woman, like in and around a woman's vulva, and that it doesn't actually impact a man because there are different, like the skin is different or I'm not sure, but I'd love for you to kind of decode some of that for us.
Sure. Yeah, I'll try. That was, it's a big question, but one we can definitely try and work through. So when applied topically to the skin, so like on your hands or on your arms or something like that, you actually do have CB1 and CB2 receptors on the skin. So you have these receptors for phytocannabinoids or cannabinoids in general, all of them, throughout every major system in your body. So your organs, your skin, muscle tissue, nervous system. And so, just backing up for 1 second, the reason that cannabis works in so many different ways and can affect healing in so many different parts of the body is that we do have this endocannabinoid system, and we actually create our own cannabinoids within our own body. And that the phytocannabinoids, the ones that we get from the plant, actually are, almost identical, molecularly identical to the ones that we produce. And so it's in fact a perfect marriage for those cannabinoids to get in and actually do their job in our bodies. And the primary function of the endocannabinoid system is to actually balance and regulate the other regulatory systems of the body. And so, people oftentimes say, gosh, how does cannabis work on, cancer as well as stress, as well as IBS, as, pain and all these different things. And it's because we have these receptor sites throughout every major system of the body. And also because the primary function of this whole system of receptor sites in the endocannabinoid system is to create balance. And so I always like to say that first, because whenever we're thinking about incorporating cannabis into our bodies for more health and more well-being, we always want to be coming from a place of trying to establish more balance, not less. And so that's kind of a primary place that I come from when I'm thinking about the products that I want to create, the strains that I'm extracting, how I'm extracting them, and the various delivery forms that we can sort of make available to people. So, as you asked, smoking versus edibles versus tincture versus vaporizing versus topical. I mean, there's even suppositories. You really can use it in so many different ways because we have these receptor sites throughout our entire body. Yeah. The question about how Quiver works and whether or not it's beneficial for a man and or a woman, we have soft tissue in our vagina that is just like the soft tissue in our mouth and is very porous and able to sort of absorb things quickly into the bloodstream because it is a type of soft tissue that our skin is quite different from. And so both in our anus and in our vagina and in our mouths and sort of these cavities, if you will, there is this soft tissue that allows us to absorb very quickly anything that is put in there. And so with a woman, we're able to actually absorb the cannabis into our vaginas, into the soft tissue around our vulva and all around, up inside and around. And so we're able to get sort of immediate and direct benefit from that absorption. Whereas men, the penis is covered in skin. And so that it's it's a little bit different. They can still get the benefit, but it's not absorbed into their bloodstream in the same way.
Okay.
Is that helpful? Does that help explain it?
Yeah, totally.
Okay, good.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But they can get that benefit by using a suppository or using Quiver in their anus, right? Because that's where their soft tissue lives. And so there can be great benefit from that. And in fact, suppositories have become a really interesting way of utilizing cannabis because it actually is very bioavailable when absorbed into the colon. So
yeah, I got a sample suppository from Fiora.
Nice.
And I'm looking forward to trying that out.
Yeah. Yeah, the fun of these products is getting to test them. It's funny, we're submitting Quiver as we submit one product a year to the Emerald Cup, which is the big contest out here, sort of like the Wine Spectator Top 100, if you will, for cannabis products.
Yeah, I might be there. I might be out there again this year.
Oh, good. Please find us. We'll be there for sure. So, but last year we submitted Rock and Roll. We got a top 3 for that placement, which was really exciting. And then this year we'll submit Quiver. And you have to submit 28 bottles, right? Because there's 28 judges. And so we all had a good joke yesterday in the office about, how are they going to test it? And just trying to picture the judges, all of them trying to sort of test Quiver in their own individual ways.
That's awesome. Well, so how do you use it? And how much do you have to use? How do you, can you apply it? What should you expect the sensation to possibly be?
Yeah, that's a great question. So normally when people ask me that question, we can't, because we're only, auditory today, I can't show you the symbol that I make with my fingers or the gesture that I make with my fingers. So what do you do with it? And I just sort of do the flick of 2 fingers. You can imagine, I'm sure. And people blush and get it immediately. It's quite funny. But so Quiver is actually meant to be inserted into the vagina. And, we say start with a couple of pumps. The interesting thing about Quiver is that I have to hand mix and test every single batch, because the way that a particular strain works, dependent upon all of its different, 400 plus compounds that are incorporated into that plant, how that is extracted and how that will affect you is different. Even if you're using the same strain and you happen to be extracting, let's say even 2 different plants of the same strain, it can actually vary quite a bit in its effect, even if the test results say that it's exactly the same. So that's the really interesting part of whole plant medicine, and why I think in its most profound and sort of pure form, it needs to be crafted and not manufactured, right? Because it's a whole plant and it has a lot of variation. So when you insert the Quiver, the feeling should be one of sort of a slow warming sensation, because it is a vasodilator, and so it helps to increase blood flow. The really cool thing about that is that you can insert it and start to feel turned on, even though you haven't had any sexual thoughts. But that physiological response of having your vagina feel high and the blood flow increase down there sends the message to your brain that you're actually getting turned on. And then you start to think about getting turned on, and then that sends the physiological response back down to your vagina saying, oh, hey, let's get turned on, right? So it's this really beautiful biofeedback loop that starts to happen, which we accentuate with the use of what I call a whisper of some other herbs in there. And so you'll start to feel warming, you'll start to, feel juicier, right? I don't have a better word for that. That's sort of the term that I've come up with, but you start to feel good from the inside out. You start to have sort of this more juicy and alive feeling. And of course, if we talk about it from an energetic perspective, it also starts to really work on the Kundalini energy. So if we think about our first chakra and where that's located and where that base chakra comes from, there is this idea that you have, the perineum and that sort of base of focal energy that can start to then travel upward and essentially get you elevated by traveling, upward through all the different chakra points and sort of allowing the energy flow to come up and within and out, which is a really beautiful experience in and of itself. And then, your vagina's high after about 20 minutes. And so as you start to experience more of a sexual nature alone or with a friend, you can actually start to sort of feel that there is an elevated sensation down there. Essentially your vagina gets high, which allows you to open up and be more receptive to all of the sensations that are going on and occurring as part of that sensual or sexual act. And I believe, we haven't been able to study this and what the exact sort of feedback loop is, but, it allows for extended orgasm, like vastly extended orgasm,
wow.
Where orgasm can be very short-lived. It can actually turn into multiple small orgasms or one, very long drawn out orgasm in a way that I can't get to that place without Quiver. I'm lucky that I can orgasm relatively easily, but Quiver just adds this whole new dimension of expansion to that experience.
Wow. And have you done any research with women who've used Quiver to just understand all of the different effects that it's having?
I have, my whole gaggle of women that I, give little samples to test new batches and things. And so we talk about it, at length, and the general feedback is, it just makes everything better, and I actually use Quiver every day. It's not just a sexual aid for me. I'll insert it just as part of my morning routine to feel good from the inside out.
I love that. I love that. Okay, that is so cool. So someone that works with you gave me a sample.
Good.
And I've just started to experiment with it a little bit. And although I haven't experimented with it with a partner yet, I've just started to just play around with it and, see how many pumps I should use. And I was talking with someone, what was that? I was talking to someone who knows your product and has used it. And they said she had to use it 3 times before she really started to feel it.
Interesting.
Yeah. And she was like, but after that, man, it was on. And I was like, awesome. I think the thing that I was worried about is that it's not compatible with latex. So can you talk to us a little bit more about that part of it?
Sure. I want to address that notion really quickly, which is I've had a lot of women buy Quiver. We have these things called social club where we actually allow people to come and, test out and sample and talk about, in these intimate sort of gatherings, all the different products that they can use. And I've had a few women over the course of 3 years come back and say, I put Quiver in, but it didn't make me orgasm. And I was like, so all you did was just put it in and kind of wait for the orgasm to come? It just, unfortunately, it's a little bit more complicated than that. So of course we have to show up and be present to all experience. The Quiver just, is an aid in that experience. But, I have also heard that women get more of an effect from Quiver the more they use it. And I'm wondering if that has something to do with a deficiency in the endocannabinoid system or in those particular receptor sites. So that it's you have to fill them up first before you actually start to get the effect, if that makes sense. Yep. And if there's any scientists listening to that, I would be so curious to explore that notion because I have heard that a number of times. It's also something that's relatively subtle because it's not like where you smoke a joint and you feel an immediate sort of hard-hitting effect. It's a much more subtle sort of slow build than that. I think as a lot of women experience with their sexuality in general is that it's not like a switch that gets turned on. It's something that needs to be nurtured and sort of paid attention to and you show up to and be present for it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Well, so that totally makes sense. And it's okay, well, some women are blessed to just orgasm whenever, but most women have to do something in order to reach that place. So, just recognizing that it's an interactive experience.
Yes. Well, right. As Westerners, we're so used to just being able to pop a pill and getting an immediate effect, right?
Oh, yeah, exactly.
So, and that's a big thing with cannabis in general, whether it's in your vagina or anywhere else in your body, is that you have to show up and be present to your own healing journey, as we like to say, right? It's a really important part of it. And cannabis kind of forces us to do that. And when you do is when you get the most profound results, right?
Absolutely. Well, and I'm wondering, so if I had a partner that, where we use condoms, and would there be a concern if we used the oil first and there was just some foreplay and adventure taking place? And
this is a question we get a lot. It's not the cannabis that is incompatible with latex. It's a fact that with Quiver in particular, we use the carrier oil, which is coconut oil, and coconut oil is known to sort of over time weaken, or deteriorate latex. I can tell you that I have, experimented a fair bit with condoms and I've never had a problem, but I do definitely always want to put the notion out there that it can weaken the latex. And if you're going for a long session or a hard session that's going to be hard on the condom, that's something that you really want to be extra careful of. But I've used it with great efficacy and never had a problem, as long as, we're mindful, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay.
But that said, I do want to put that, disclaimer on there that, it definitely can, the coconut oil in particular can be detrimental to the sort of latex.
Okay. And then, there's something about the coconut oil being a good, delivery system for the cannabis, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, THC is fat soluble. So the coconut oil, helps with that process, but also coconut oil is just incredibly beneficial to a woman's soft tissue. So it made sense that was the carrier oil that we would use for the product. As we expand and start to grow, I think we'll have to come up with another alternative, just so we don't have, we have a version that is latex safe, if you will.
Exactly.
But coconut for me is where it's at when it comes to putting things down there.
Awesome. Well, so do you have anything coming up? Any other products that you're experimenting with or developing in this space?
Absolutely. Lots and lots of things in my head. Some have been put into practice. We are so it's a relatively low dose, microdose, if you will, of cannabis in Quiver, because what we found is that there's this very fine balance of having enough so that you get the sensation, but not too much where it actually starts to stop sensation. So when you have higher doses of cannabis, especially higher doses, specifically just of the THC, you can actually start to become desensitized. So there's a threshold of getting a higher dose of the THC and then actually pushing through that and going to an even almost more of a mega dose where you are actually able to feel yourself getting high from that delivery method, meaning inserted in vagina. So it's almost like a microdose and then a megadose, and anything in between can actually have the opposite effect.
Got it.
So the megadose is something that we've been playing with, and also playing with different aphrodisiac herbs that can be inserted for additional effect, so that you are actually now starting to get high, literally high from the inside out. Quiver does not necessarily get you high. Most women don't experience a psychoactive effect. But when we do the mega dosing, you definitely do. It brings you into quite a different realm and a very different experience than what Quiver has. So I'm excited to sort of finalize that formulation and bring that to market, because I think women are going to have a lot of fun with it.
Ooh, well, I can't wait to know about that. Oh, Alicia, it's been so great to have you on today. So where can people find your products online?
Yep. So we, of course, are based in California. So we're not allowed to transport cannabis across state lines. That is a federal offense. So right now, the only way you can get it is if you are in California. And the best way to get it right now is on our website, which is herbabuena.com. And we can deliver. If you're outside of our delivery areas, we are carried in a couple of dispensaries, and we'll certainly be expanding that as the all of the things fall into place in our California regulatory bodies to make that more possible and easier. So
awesome. Well, and it's herbabuena.com.
Yep.
Great. Okay, cool. And we'll put all of the links in the show notes. And just in wrapping up here, is there anything else that you'd like to let our audience know about Herba Buena, or, things to look out for? Do you have an email list that people can sign up for?
Yeah, absolutely. Also on the website. And of course, we're pretty active on Facebook and Instagram. Both can be found under Herba Buena. I think Facebook is Herba Buena Collective, and Instagram is just Herba Buena. The other thing that I think is really interesting, just beyond Quiver itself, is that we're finding that women and men get a really incredible sort of boost to their libido and their sort of experience of sensuality when they smoke or imbibe through vaporizing flowers that have a balanced ratio of CBD to THC. And so if we're looking for sort of that horny weed, if you will, right, the sort of holy grail of cannabis in some ways, at least when we're talking about this realm, is something that does have that balance of CBD. So you want the THC to sort of bring you up and out of your body and into your mind. And then you want the CBD to sort of help you get back into your body, if you will. will. And if you have both of those things happening at once and have sort of the idea towards sensuality, it can be a very, very effective and great experience. And we do have a couple of those strains available. One is called Canatonic. We'll be releasing another one. It's just curing right now, but it's extraordinary, called Balance Queen. And really excited to share those with people because it really is this beautiful sort of additional experience. So if you can smoke a joint of Balance Queen or Canatonic and then insert some Quiver, it's definitely magical. Awesome. Magical evening ahead.
Yeah. Well, I'll be out in California in a couple of weeks, so
okay, good.
Definitely want to hit you up. Well, Ignite Intimacy community, thank you so much for joining us. Alicia, thank you for being here and just like putting your magical foot forward in this whole space. And Quiver, I look forward to continuing to explore and experiment with that. And check them out online, herbabuena.com. And if you have any questions or thoughts, or you want to know more, you can also email us at hello@igniteintimacy.com, or just go to herbabuena.com and you can connect with Alicia there. So grateful for everyone joining us today, and just stay blessed out there in this wild and wonderful world we're living in. And remember, you can put your pleasure first in so many different magical, amazing, healthful ways. So stay blessed and ciao for now. Give thanks for tuning in to another conversation on the Ignite Intimacy podcast hotline. We love that you choose to spend your time with us. Check us out online at igniteintimacy.com and subscribe to us on iTunes. Also, tell your friends all about it. This beautiful music was arranged by Jason Pfaff and Mike Corey, and this podcast is produced by yours truly, Miss La. Give thanks again, and we'll see you on the next one. In the meantime, let your light shine bright and ignite your intimacy.